moving away from the hitch, let's show you some other parts of your trailer before we get back to the operational end of the machine. We have a 12-gallon fuel tank, and it has a primer bulb. Sometimes if you run out of fuel on a hot day, the engine may struggle to pick up a little bit of prime. You can just give it a few pumps, but you don't have to do that every single time. But that's what this is for. And your fuel filter is right there. You should be able to easily see the fuel going through it. Otherwise, it needs to be replaced. Right over here is the main drain for the water tank. Just pull it and it's going to dump water out the 2-inch port. I'm not going to do that right now because it's going to make a mess. And by the way, this training is covering all the new Eagle 200 models. This is a 4010, which means 4,000 PSI, 10 gallons per minute. You might have the 3012 or one of the off models, but the 3012 is definitely the second most popular, and that is 12 gallons a minute at 3,000 PSI. Point is, this training will cover both. They are both in the same series. Moving from there, this has the optional antifreeze system for purging out the water so that the jetter won't freeze with water in it. And that is an option. If you don't have this, you're going to have an air chuck where you can actually use compressed air to blow the water out of the system. Moving over, after you go about, say, 30 miles or so, you're going to want to check those lug nuts, make sure they're tight. There is a lube point here also, by the way, underneath this cover. It's very simple. You'll see that in your trailer manual. And before you hit the road, of course, you want to make sure your tires are in good condition. That's very important. And moving back just a little further, this is where the battery is stored. Battery is not connected when you receive the jetter, so nothing's going to happen until you connect up the negative terminals on the battery. Okay, and if you need any information on that, just give us a call or send us an email at info@jettersnorthwest.com. If you're going to store the jetter for quite a while, it's not a bad idea to disconnect the battery if you say you don't jet during the winter, something to that effect. All right, next scene, we'll move over to the business end of the jetter where the controls are. All right, before we can hydrojet, of course, we need water. And there are two ways you can put water in the jetter. You have an air gap fill here. If you have an opportunity to feed off of a hydrant or an industrial high flow water source, we've got a 2-inch connection here. This is a cam coupler connection, but if you prefer like a fire fitting, you can purchase those locally or online. We don't really carry those. You could adapt this if you want to have like a roll-up hose or something to use the fast fill, as we call it, which is a 2-inch pipe. Of course, you'll need to take the lid off to do so, and I recommend definitely when you get done, make sure that lid is nice and tight. We often hear guys call that they've lost their lid because they didn't tighten it up, as drove down the road and it disappeared. But the more common way to bring water to this jetter is with the water supply hose and hose reel. This is just a storage point right here. This is just a garden hose fitting. What we have here is 100 feet of 3/4 inch industrial water hose. By the way, if you get any extensions, 100 feet's a nice length, but if you do get any extensions, definitely recommend you get at least 3/4 inch. And get a nice rubber industrial hose like this. You know, the hoses that can be at the hardware stores, they kink so easily and they're not real resilient once they kink. This kinks and it just springs right back. Okay, there is a lock mechanism on here. This allows you to just grab the hose and head toward the nearest spigot to get yourself some water. Now, one thing super nice here is as it feeds into the water tank, it feeds into a float valve. So just like a toilet tank, when the water level gets up to full, the float valve in there is just going to shut off the incoming water. So you don't need to babysit the incoming water. And really, I really need to tell you, the reason for air gap back over here and having the float valve in here also is we're not supposed to just drop a garden hose into the water tank that's full of water, because if the fire department or somebody opens up a hydrant, it can actually create a suction and you can be pulling water out of your tank, which of course is not potable water, into the water system. And if some inspector sees you do that, you might get tagged and fined. So recommend that you feed with either the garden hose or, again, if you have a high flow source, you're having that air gap in there so it can't siphon back.